It's great to see everyone here this morning and at this important training session. I know this has been going on for over 100 years, where you have a chance to come together and share ideas. And I know a little bit about this business, having been married to a federal prosecutor for 30 years, and we always went to the chiefs of police of Erie County, Western New York events all the time. And I also, as a local official, had the privilege of hiring many of the members of our police force. I did the interviews. I helped find an incredible individual to lead our police department at the time, Carmen Kesner from the town of Hamburg, who still remains a great friend. So I have always felt close to this community, and your leadership has always been needed, but needed now more than ever because of the challenges that we all face. And so I thank Kevin for assuming the position of leadership, incoming president, and Pat Fallon and Tim Farisi for the outgoing president as well. So leadership matters. Before I do talk about some of my reflections, I do want to just acknowledge the collective pain that all of us feel as New Yorkers at the loss of one of our own. I'll be at the funeral very soon, I think on Monday. Anthony Mazurkowitz, father, 29-year veteran of the Rochester Police Force, who was just simply doing his job. And when you get that call, and all of you have experienced this, that one of our own has gone down in the line of duty, it is it's a reminder of the fragility of life and the sacrifices that all of you are willing to make and your families are willing to make when you put on that uniform. And as the chiefs, I know that's something you also feel deeply when you lose one of your own. So I've been to far too many funerals of police officers across the state, and I will always continue to just call out, reject the violence. Those of you who are willing to sacrifice your lives to keep us safe deserve respect. You deserve our support, our vocal support, and that the era of denigrating our police has to be over, that we support you. We support you 100%. And that includes funding. We'll always be funding our police departments, and I'll get into that in a couple of minutes. So I do also want to talk about just my opportunities to engage. It's a solemn occasion, but I try very hard in my 8 years as lieutenant governor, now as governor, to never miss gathering in Albany for the memorial service to honor those we've lost, and whether they're in active duty or people that ultimately succumbed to 9/11 illnesses. A lot of people went down there, and 20 years ago stood shoulder to shoulder with people on the pile trying to recover the bodies of people we lost on that day. So we're always dealing with that sense of emotion, but also the stress of the everyday job. When you don't feel that there is support from a community, that has to be an extra burden. And I'm going to continue to work as your governor to just remind everybody of how we do not have a civilized society without you. You are the front line out there to keep us from descending into chaos. And it's something that I think about a lot as governor, because we share the common objective. My number one responsibility as the governor of New York is to protect New Yorkers. And that is also the same oath that all of you take, to protect and to serve. So we are aligned in our common objectives here, and we will be a better, stronger state when we find ways to bring together that common passion that drew you to your profession and drew me to mine, which is to simply serve others. So we've overcome a lot together. I do believe that there's always opportunities for improvements in relationships. This is what I'm trying to do as a new governor, trying to dial back a lot of the drama involved and just work with people, treat people to respect, bring them to the tables. And I believe that there has been a shortcoming for years in terms of making sure that the voices of law enforcement are there when we're talking about policies that affect what you do every day. You have an important perspective that needs to be heard and needs to be shared. So I've asked my team, I said, we're working on legislation. We're talking about red flag laws, for example, trying to strengthen them to protect society when we see threats that are already out there, that we can connect the dots more often, that we work with you to get your perspectives on what we should be doing. And that's going on right now. And I've told my team to be reaching out to this organization to make sure you're at the table with us. So these are the simple things that we can do, is to change people's attitudes and say, we're on the same side here. We're on the same side here. And the more I can say that and reinforce that as governor, I believe that we can make real progress toward mutual understanding between the people, the communities they're is supposed to protect, and the communities themselves. And a trust has to be rebuilt. And I know all of you are committed to that. You want to see that. And we've seen experiences where people have stepped up and shown a creative way to engage in the communities. Like we see in Newburgh with the engagement with the local community and having movie nights and just talking to people and treating them with respect as well. I think that's going to go a long way. Those simple steps that people take and intentionality of being out in the communities. My police officers, when I worked very closely as a liaison to our police department for 14 years, I said, when I was hiring, I said, I want people who are going to be out there being Little League coaches and involved in your churches and your communities. I want people to see you as just regular family members, regular people in the community, so that trust is built, that it's not us versus them ever. We're all on the same side to protect the safety of New Yorkers. So you're important to me. You're important to your communities, and you actually perform an absolutely essential role to keep us going. So I will make sure that your voices are heard. And I do want to talk about the fact that we are concerned about crime very much in this state. This is not a partisan issue. We are collectively working together to eradicate crime, particularly gun violence, which has really been terrorizing not just our urban areas, but we have seen more in our suburban communities, our rural communities as well. And we have to make sure that we're just working closely together on eradicating this spike in cases and spike in gun violence. And what we have to do is continue to support. I mentioned funding. I have said no one will ever say the words defund the police in my presence. That is not going to go anywhere. You're not going to make friends with me if you say that. In fact, in my budget, I said we're going to show our commitment to making sure you have the resources to do what you need to do. So our funding for local law enforcement agencies is now $393 million annually. That is our budget. We put that in. I said I wanted to see increases. We also have $227 million to help strengthen our gun violence protection efforts across the state. And part of that is our gun violence elimination initiative, which I know many of you participate in, $18 million for that. And that's to help communities that have been hardest hit by gun violence. Also, our crime analysis centers. I do hope that you're engaged with this. I really wanted to stand these up and make sure that they're really an active resource for you as we share information. That's how we're solving crimes. That's how we're getting ahead of the bad guys, the ones who are out there plotting every day how to prey on our citizens. We have to analyze this and share data. And I believe that we can be doing more. We have 10 facilities across the state, and we're working closely with over 350 law enforcement agencies. And those of you who are participating in the training, I do hope you're starting to see the benefit of this cooperation. And what we've also done is tripled the amount of money we've been spending on the community-based violence responses, where people who've been through the criminal justice system go back out into communities and try to partner with police and the authorities to just get people to make the right decisions, so they don't go down that wrong path that they may have themselves. So we also are going to continue fighting. Our budget just passed, and some of these laws just went into effect to give the law enforcement more opportunities to have arrests for repeat offenders and property thefts and gun violence cases and hate crimes. All of those are now covered back under the law that had not been covered before. We also gave more authority for our judges to analyze the severity of an offense when they're making their decisions. So all these are not out there in the news, but that's exactly what we did in our budget. Just went into effect a couple of weeks ago. So we are very concerned also about people with mental health problems that are posing threats to our law enforcement as well as to our citizens. So we have to address that head on. It got worse during the pandemic. Everybody knows it got worse during the pandemic, and now you are having to deal with this. I mean, you're members of your police departments, your police forces are dealing with this problem more than they probably ever have in their lifetimes. And it's really having an effect, and we have a responsibility as government to help people get support and help and stop them from being a threat to society. So I also want to mention that I stood up a new task force. First time ever we've had an interstate gun interdiction task force because of the flow of illegal guns coming from other states. We now have 9 states, including, and also the NYPD is participating, ATF, local chiefs of police, our district attorneys. I go to the meetings. The meetings are in Albany. Every month or so, we're going to do another meeting with the head of ATF for the country next month. And what I'm doing at this opportunity is to talk about how we can be sharing information as people cross state lines. I want to know where the guns are coming from. I want to know the point of entry. I know where they're going when they get here. And I've deployed my state police department to be heavily involved in working on this with all of you. This is how we start protecting our communities, is to stop the flow of illegal guns coming to our communities. But also, we've had to make some changes to our own laws. It was so clear after we saw the massacre of 10 neighbors in my community of Buffalo, literally 10 minutes from my home, that Tops grocery store. And I'm going back there again this weekend to just help this community heal. It was absolutely devastating. But after we came back from that and we assess, connecting the dots, what went wrong in that scenario, we realized we needed to pass a number of laws and change some laws, saying that 18-year-olds should not have their hands on AR-15s, because a short time later, an 18-year-old also went into Uvalde and destroyed the lives of 19 children. So we changed the law to say you at least have to be 21 years old. We think that is reasonable. It makes sense. It's going to help protect your members as well. But also closing some of the loopholes that were out there. And we're now starting micro stamping. I believe that it's going to take a little time to develop, but ultimately this will allow you, as you're trying to solve crimes, have a fingerprint on a bullet so you can trace it. It doesn't affect anybody's right to own a weapon, own a gun. We'll always continue the legal permit process. That's what we're going to focus on, making sure that that runs smoothly. I used to run the pistol permit office in my office. I was the county clerk. I issued all the pistol permits. So I understand the process and the background checks that are involved. I also understand people's rights. But being able to trace where a bullet originated is going to help all of you be able to do your jobs as well. So we're focused on that. Also, we're focusing on hate speech. I mean, so many times the intent of a mass killer is telegraphed to everybody on social media, but no one's been able to see that. And so our state police have stepped up with the monitoring. I've added more staff to that agency to focus on this, as well as having this, asking the Attorney General to investigate the role of hate speech in people's activities, how they're becoming radicalized, sitting in their house, being able to download videos of other mass shootings, as we saw happen with the Buffalo shooter. He had already been watching the Christ King Church massacre over and over as inspiration for his radicalization. So that's what we're focusing on, also trying to help identify and track where ammunition's coming from. And I do want to give a shout out to the incredible leadership we saw in Buffalo at that time. Commissioner Camille, Joe, are you here? Are you in the room? I don't know if he's here or not. He left? Well, let's give him a round of applause anyhow, because that, Joe Kamalia, you talk about leadership in a crisis. He calmed a whole community down. His leadership, his calm, his sense of having it all together and knowing that the police were there to support this community that was so devastated. His leadership will go down in history as a hallmark to what a police chief can do to a community that is reeling in pain. And I'm so proud to come from a city where our chief, our commissioner, stood up in such a profound way. So I do want to acknowledge him and recognize that so many of you unexpectedly are called to stand up and be that face of calm and reassurance to a community that is so anxious about what has happened to them, the terrorism that just occurred in their own community. So I want to just leave with you with a couple thoughts. We are making progress. This is a high priority of mine to make sure that we start eradicating gun violence, fighting crime, working together in teamwork. That's something that hasn't happened before. We have seen a decline in gun shootings and violence. We really have, down about 8% statewide, down 12% in New York City. So we're starting to turn the corner. We're comparing our numbers with the last 2 years. We're also going way back to 2012, and we're seeing, property crimes are down 28%. Violent crime is down about 4 or 5%. But we still have challenges. I'm not going to say, oh, the numbers are good, we're all set. We're not there yet. Until I can guarantee that every New Yorker is safe from crime, we're not done. We're not done. But I know that working together in the spirit of collaboration, which has not been there before, that we can bring this state together. And that's the state I want to continue to lead as your governor, but also I will be able to perform my responsibilities when I show the respect to what you do every day and bring you to the table. So we have your voices at the table when we're making decisions. So I thank you. I thank you for being willing to just serve the communities in such a profound, powerful way. A visible reminder that a community is going to be safe because you dress up in your uniform every day and you show up to work. That is very impactful for all of us. We need that. We need that sense of security because fear is debilitating. When people are afraid to walk down the streets, afraid of having their house broken into when they leave, fearful something's going to happen to their children, that is debilitating. We all have a responsibility to try and eradicate that. Give people the sense of security they deserve as a New Yorker, someone living in our state. They're the people that we are collectively fighting for every single day. So thank you. Thank you for what you do, and I'll continue to support you in every way I can. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak.